Let's get started. So this session, I've scheduled 60 minutes for this, and my goal in the time we have together is just to show you a few things with the effective pricing software, but most important is to answer questions. I guess looking at who's here today, you're all familiar with how I run these sessions, but just a quick recap. I will answer questions. So stick those. If you've got questions for me, please do not use the chat box for questions because it's difficult to separate the questions from comments. Use the Q&A box in Zoom. So you should see somewhere Q&A. If you have any questions at any point in time over the next 50 minutes, stick them in the questions box and I will answer as many as I can during the course of the session. Now I know that we've got a mix of people here. Many of you, I can tell from the names, are members of the Value Pricing Academy and the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy, but some of you aren't. And that's because up until now, we launched effective pricing back in July now. We launched it in July, but it was exclusively for members of my pricing academies. That's the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy and the Value Pricing Academy. Nobody else has been able to have it until now. We've now finished off the website and it is now available to subscribe, and I'll tell you how to get it if you're not a member of the academy. And so because we have a mix of people here, some people have been using it since way back in July now. And we've had some people getting some amazing results with it, sharing some incredible success stories. The results they're getting is extraordinary. For example, I think I have one somewhere to hand that I saw a little while back, if I can find it. Yeah, someone said they got a 346% higher price using the software. And I've got lots of stories coming over the last couple of months. People have got 89% higher prices and 34% and many, many more. And I've put those on some of those on the website. So if you're not using the software yet, you can check out the results that people are getting. So what I'm going to do in this session is I'm going to just, for those of you that have no idea what the software is, I'm going to just do a quick demonstration of how you would use it to do a price. And then what I'm going to do is talk a bit about the back end, because a few weeks ago in the Value Pricing Academy Facebook group, I asked people, what would you like to know next time I go live? And a lot of questions were around how do you set up the questions and the calculations and the maths. So I'm going to go behind the scenes a little bit and just show a little bit around that. Then we're going to open up to questions. So questions, let me know what you want to know. If we've got time, I'll also give you a sneak preview of what's coming very, very soon now with proposals, which we're having some fun this week at the moment, just building some templates for you. So I might get a chance to just show you that as well. So that's kind of our agenda, but largely it's going to be questions from you. And I can see there's a first question come through already, so I'll answer this straight away. So this is Timia says, hi Mark, will you send me the recording? It is recording. It's recording at the moment. So what we'll do with the recording is we will put it, we'll probably put it, I'll check with my team. We'll probably put it in the Facebook groups. So that's a good place, but also we're going to put it in the training course as well. So you can access it at any point in time. In fact, with that said, what I'm going to do is, let me just turn my screen share on because I want, let me just remind you where you will find things like video training and recording. So if I turn on my screen share, so one of the things that I know many of you have access to is a video training platform called Effective Pricing, a systems approach to value pricing. This is where we've put all the training videos. So if you want to find out how to use the software, you just go to this training site and you will find, as I scroll down the left-hand side, there are a whole range of videos on how to get started, how to create your quotes for clients, how to set up your pricing models, and then you'll see there's a section called live training just down near the bottom. Can you see live training on the left-hand side? That's where there's already a couple of videos from past training sessions. This recording is going to go there, Timia. So I'll put it on the Facebook group as well, but this is where it's going to reside in the course here. Now, if you're in the Value Pricing Academy or the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy, you've almost certainly got this course already. If you're not, you might possibly have it, because this is a course that's been around for a while. It used to be called Cloud Pricing, a systems approach to value pricing. It's where we kept all the training videos for cloud pricing. So if you're a current user of the old software, then you've got access to the course almost certainly. And all we've done is we've added new content. At the bottom is the old videos, which we'll probably remove sometime soon, on how to use Cloud Pricing 2.0, because this site's now really for the brand new software, Effective Pricing. So if you're not sure if you've got this course or not, here's how you find out. You go to my website. My website is and Sarah might put a link into the chat box, www.wickersham.co.uk. That's my main website. When you go to my website, you will see at the top in the list of menu options on the right-hand side will be one called My Library. My Library is all the courses and things that you may have bought from me in the past. And if you click on My Library, and you may well see that you've got a copy of the training program that's on the screen right now. It's called Effective Pricing, a systems approach to value pricing. And if you don't have it, Sarah will give you a link so you can grab yourself a copy. The course is complimentary. It's the training platform for how to use the pricing software. So if you've not got it, we'll put in the chat box the link so you can get it. So because there's a comprehensive series of training videos on how to set up the software, how to do your quotes, how to set up pricing models, because there's training videos, today's session and these live sessions is not so much about me doing formal training, because that's available to you. I'd rather just answer your questions, which is why today is going to be more of a Q&A session. So before we do that though, before we dive into a Q&A session, let me quickly, for those of you that are perhaps new to the software, let me just do a very quick tour. And those of you that know the software inside out, because you're part of the Pricing Academy, start thinking about, what do you want me to teach you today? What are your questions? What things do you want to know? Get them in the questions box. Think about that for the next 10 minutes or so. But what I'll do is, for people who have no idea what the software does, let me quickly show. So the point of the software, and what I will do, actually, I'm going to turn just to reduce the, I'll turn my webcam off just so you can focus on the screen for now. Sarah, just remind me if I need to put it back on again, because I sometimes forget. I'm so used to it being on. So the purpose of the software is to be able to give people a value-based price to figure out what they're willing to pay by involving the client in the process, in the pricing process, in the pricing conversation. So you use the software when you get to the point in the conversation when you're ready to discuss price. The software is designed to use in front of the client. I know some people use it just behind the scenes to work out a price and then send it in a proposal. You can do it that way behind the scenes, but really the power is using it face to face with the client. When you get the software, it comes with some pre-written pricing models. You can build your own pricing models. You can pretty much price anything that you want. The limit is really your imagination. So I've got my version set up with a whole bunch of models. Over on the left-hand side, if I just expand this left-hand menu, I've got models set up for how to price payroll, how to price forecasting, bookkeeping, business advisory, and so much more. You can use it to price pretty much any service that you want. And as I said, you can either build models from scratch, or we've got existing ones that we've created for you that you can use as they are, or use them as a starting point and edit them. What you have access to in terms of pricing models really depends upon which plan you have with the software. There are 3 versions of the software: starter plan, there's the full plan, which members of the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy get as part of that membership, and the pro plan, which is the top level, which is also available for anybody in the Value Pricing Academy as part of that membership. And depending on which plan you have determines which pricing models that you have available to you. So let's look at cloud setup. Let's imagine, for example, that you've been talking to a client or potential client, and you've identified in the meeting that they're on a desktop accounting system and they really need to get onto a cloud accounting system, and you want to talk to them about what the price would be for doing exactly that. So I'm going to select cloud setup. I'd hope if I had the client in front of me, I'd have talked about the benefits of moving to the cloud. I might have a brochure. I might go through my 3 different options, my bronze, silver, gold. And when they say, yes, that's the one I want, I need the middle option, what's it going to cost? Then we open up the software and we go through the pricing with them. It's really funny because I'm used to having my webcam on, so I'm doing hand gestures and all sorts while I'm speaking, and you can't see a thing of what I'm doing right now. Anyway, it keeps me happy. So I've opened this up. What we do is we ask a series of questions. The first one, what's the client called? And there's a few details there. But essentially what we then do is you'll see on the left-hand side is a vertical what's the word I'm looking for? Workflow. Under the words cloud setup, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving around. It's the process that we go through, and you'll see that ticking off as we work through the screens. So once we've asked the basic details, what we do is we move forward. I hit save and continue, and I want to ask some scope questions. I want to understand how much work's involved if I'm setting this person up on a cloud accounting system. So some of the questions I might ask in this case, I might want to know what system do they want to move on to. So I could be setting them up on QuickBooks Online. I might be setting them up on Xero, Sage 1. And you could put, if this was your model, you could list all of the different software tools that you're willing to set people up on. Of course, it might be that if, let's say, you're a QBO Pro Advisor, you only ever set people up on QBO, in which case you wouldn't need this first question. But if you did, if you offer multiple systems, you can have different prices for different ones. Let's go with QuickBooks Online as my example. The second question is actually much more important, and that is, what system are they currently on right now? And that's an important question from a scope point of view, because if they're currently on another alternative cloud accounting system, then the process of setting people up is quite straightforward, because there are tools that automate the process of moving across the data, and to some extent the same with desktop systems. But if they're on a spreadsheet or a manual set of books and records, then you're going to have to manually key in their opening trial balance and so on. And that obviously has more work, and therefore you want a higher price. In this particular case, I'm going to go with a cloud. I'm going to go with a Sage desktop system. So I have a client that's moving from Sage desktop. They want to move to QuickBooks Online, and that's the main thing that will impact on the scope of the work in this particular case for this particular project. I might want to ask the question: is your accounting system up to date? Yes or no? Because if they say yes, as you probably know, moving people onto a cloud accounting system is relatively straightforward if their trial balance is fully reconciled and up to date. If they answered no to that question, I've actually set this model up so it doesn't actually impact on the price. That's more of a reminder to say that if they're not up to date, you can't move their data across to QuickBooks Online until they've got their stuff up to date. So there's a cleanup project required. So if the client asks no to this question, I would explain that that we need to do cleanup work, and I'd have a separate pricing model for that. But let's leave that with yes for now. We might also want to ask, I want to some more questions here. We might want to ask them how many bank accounts they have, let's say 3, and how many employees they have, let's say 5, because it may be that what you do as part of your service is you set up, for example, bank feeds. And if you're setting up the bank feeds for a cloud accounting system, then of course, the more bank accounts they have, the more work you've got to create those to set up those bank feeds. So you would want to build that into your pricing model. But you also want to ask questions around their preferences. And this is where we start to get into the realms of value pricing now, and it gets powerful, because up until now, those questions we've asked are just scope questions identified to make sure that we have a price that gives us a profit. But this is where things get really powerful, is giving people choices. So we might, for example, say to the client, would you like us, when we set you up on QBO, to set up your bank feeds for you? And they might say, tell me, what does that mean? And we would say, well, what that means is that it will automatically grab the transactions from your bank account and post them automatically, which when you do your own bookkeeping, it'll save you so much time. Yes, that sounds great. Yes, please, I'll have that. Would you like to set up your employer records? Yes, that's great. Please do that. What about we can set up products for you? And so and there's many other things you could perhaps do. These are giving people choices as to whether you do it for them or whether they don't need that or they want to do it themselves. We might ask them, do you want this done fast? I've called it, do you want our 7-day fast track service where we guarantee to get the whole thing set up inside 7 days? Yes, that would be great. When they answer yes, they're telling you about their preferences. They're telling you about things they value. And if they say yes, those things, of course, the price goes up. So once you've asked your questions, and you can create in the software as many questions as you want. I've just given you an example of how I might do cloud setup work. Now we can get to the page where we can present them some different packages, some different choices. And this is where you might present them with a series of ticks and crosses. And at this stage, you might go through and talk them through the different options. Now, it may be that if you have an existing brochure that you've already gone through, it may be the client's already said they want the middle package, for example. Once we know which one the client wants, we can now reveal the price. And there's a button here called fixed price. And we can see here the way it's set up. If they want the middle package, it's 3 payments of $955. Now, I know for some of you, that might seem really, really expensive. And I know that because I know from my research over the last few years is that about 1/3 of accountants and bookkeepers do cloud accounting setup work for free, which is crazy, but many do. And so we should be charging. And I know some firms that are getting $1,000, $2,000 when they set up cloud accounting systems. So if those numbers seem high, that could be probably because you're too cheap right now. But also what we want to do, and this is one of the important things about the idea of working with the client, is the client has no idea what the price should be. They don't know. And so we want to create what's called an anchor or a reference price. And so you always want to come up with a high price to start with, because we don't know what they're willing to pay and what they value something. And setting somebody up on a cloud accounting system could be extremely valuable. But if the client says that's expensive, then the great thing about the software-based approach is that we can work with the client. If 3 payments of $955 is too expensive, we simply just go back and we might reevaluate some of their preferences. We might say, for example, the reason why it's 955, 3 payments of 955 is because you want us to set up all of your products. Now, if you prefer, we can show you how to do that yourself and set them up within the system, and you can do it yourself. And if we do that, it'll be cheaper. What would you prefer? And the client might say, I suppose if you can show me, I can do that myself. Great, let me show you what the price would be if we do that. It's now just $865, 3 payments of. And the client's now evaluating that price based on what they've seen before. It now feels like a better price because they're comparing that to the one that was nearly $1,000. But if it's still too high, we can then just keep taking one thing out at a time. It might be we show them how to set up their employee records. It might be they don't want things done fast. And so we can go backwards and forwards one step at a time. And in this case, now the price is down to $525 until the client says yes. And then we've made a sale. If, of course, the price is still too high, there's other packages. They could go for the essential setup, or we could do something called Behave Rewards, where we offer some discounts, which I won't go into now, but it's essentially an area where we could give people some discounts if, for example, they agree to pay us up front and so on. And then when the client says yes, if they say, yeah, I'm happy with that middle package at 3 payments of $525, the process isn't finished, because now what we can do is we can take them to our upsell page where we say, okay, now that we're doing that for you, here's some other things that people like us to do. Would you be interested in setting up and creating your fixed asset register? And we can go through and systematically offer other things that are related to, in this case, cloud accounting setup. We could sort out bill pay. We could sort out time. We could set up a time tracking system and integrate it into their cloud accounting system, something like T-Sheets, for example. So there's, now they're on the cloud, there's other things that we could integrate or set up for them. Let's assume the client, let's imagine the client doesn't want those things, not a problem. We can move on. And then finally, we can agree the specific dates and the exact amounts of when they make those payments. So this one was 3 payments of $525. If you've got sales tax to add on, or VAT in the UK, you can add that on. You can set up the dates and so on, ready to then send them a schedule and a proposal. Okay, so that's just a very quick walkthrough of the software from the front end when you sat down with a client. what I want to spend the next 5 or 10 minutes is answering some questions I got from people in the Pricing Academy, and then I'm going to open up to other questions. So a lot of people said to me in my Facebook group, they said, Mark, so can you talk a little bit more? And I think Lynn James is here. So Lynn, I know you asked this question. Can you talk a little bit more about how you set up the questions and the different calculation types? So let me dive into that. I'm conscious that if you've never used the software before, this may now be, I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit, but I just want you to just get a flavor for what you can do, because now I want to address some specific questions. And so that's the front end. But if I click on the cogwheel in the top, this is where we can set up everything that we want about the software. We can make it our own. We can set up our pricing models. We can put our logo on rather than the effective pricing logo. You can make this yours by changing it to your color theme, so it looks like it's your software. And we do all that in the settings area. And so one of those areas is model management. This is perhaps the most important place. This is where you create and set up your pricing models. So when you come here, you will see in the top half all the models that you've set up. I have a lot because I'm doing lots of demonstrations like cloud setup, business startup, bookkeeping, and so on. At the bottom with orange buttons are ones that we've set up for you to get you started. The ones you have available will depend upon what plan you have. And so if you want to use a pre-written model, what happens is you hit the yellow button that says use model. And what the software will do, let's take cloud setup, for example. If I hit cloud setup and use model, what the software does is it clones it. It takes a copy of it and makes it yours. So you've got your very own version. It puts the cloning date in there, which you'll want to change because this is the name the client will see when you open it up, but you can change the name of it. It could be just cloud setup. If you're a Qubio Pro Advisor, you might prefer to call this Qubio setup. It's entirely up to you. But if you see a date, that date is the date that it was cloned, copied. Okay, so I've just done that. I've cloned this particular model. There's a few other settings we can play with, but I don't want to really look at those too much. I want to just look at the questions bit. So when we have models, we have a series of questions. We can also set a few other things like, for example, and I'm looking at the workflow on the left-hand side, as we can also do things like specify how we price our bronze, silver, gold. We can build in price psychology. We can choose to have our prices end in a 9, for example. There's a whole bunch of things we can do around how we present our packages to our clients. We can build the packages with the ticks and the crosses, or we could have text in there as well. So this is what they see on the pricing page. We can set up our discounts or behavior rewards. We can set up our upsell. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can set up within the software. I want to focus for the next 5 minutes on the first section, the questions, because this is really, I guess, the most important part. So with the pricing model, the way that the price is calculated is based on the answers to a series of questions. So you can create questions and either use the questions in the ones that we've set up for you, or you can create your own questions, you can create your own models. It's entirely up to you. All the questions can be broken down into sections. So I have a section, my first section, which I'm waving about here, is called About Your Accounting System, which is my scope questions. I've then got a couple more scope questions in the About Your Business, and I then have your preferences. A section simply means that, well, 2 reasons. Firstly, if we bunch together our questions into a section, that means that when we are going through the workflow with the client, as you may remember 10 minutes ago, is each section of questions is asked on a new screen. So we just advanced the screen forward. I had 3 screens worth of questions. So that's one reason why you might want to create sections to sort your questions out. There is a more advanced reason why you might want to do that, which is you might want to either hide questions. There's a hide button, which you may notice. Hide means that's where you want to answer the questions before the meeting, but you don't want the client to see those questions. There's some reasons why you might want to do that. I don't want to go into that now. It's more advanced pricing. And you can also isolate sections, and that's essentially a way of changing the order of the calculations or the order of the math. And I won't go into that in detail right now, unless we have some questions come in, then I can obviously talk about that. But essentially what happens with the maths is that you ask the questions, and behind the scenes, the price is built up based on the prices you've set and in the order of the questions. I'm going to explain that better by showing some examples. So the very first question you may remember is what system do you want to move to? That's question number 1, which, by the way, I could move that. I could make that question number 2 or 3. I can change the order very easily by dragging the questions. I'm going to hit the edit button. And for every question, what we can do, as well as, of course, deleting the question, for every question, we can choose what the question is, what the client sees. So in this case, it's what system do you want to move to? I could also have a little description if I wanted to. But then what you want to do is set for each question what's called a question type and a calculation type. So for every question, there is a different set of question types. Drop down, yes or no, value, and free text. And if you're a Cloud Pricing 2.0 user, free text is brand new. So what do they each mean? Drop down is if you want to ask a question where the answers are a list that they choose something from, which this question is. It's what system do you want to move to? And I had a drop-down box with QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage 1, other cloud accounting system. The yes/no type question is more of the type, would you like this? And they would answer it as a yes or a no. So just a binary choice. Yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. Do you want to set up bank feeds? Yes or no. And then there's the value question. That's the how much. How many bank accounts do you want us to set up for you? How many times would you like to meet during the course of the year? And so where we're looking for a number to be typed in is the value. Each of those 3 has a mathematical implication. The 4th one doesn't, by the way. The 4th one is a free text one. And the reason for this was feedback we had some years ago from people saying, do you know what I'd love to be able to do? I'd love to be able to capture information. So you might want to ask in your questions, how did you hear of us? Was it a referral? Was it through social media? Because the software can collect the answers. Now that one clearly has no impact on the price, but you can do that if you want to use this to collect information. They're the question types. So drop down, yes or no, and value are the 3 that you'll use most of the time. What you then decide is what's the calculation that takes place. And we have quite a number of options here, but most of the time you'll use 2. You'll either add something on or you'll multiply something. It's either add or multiply. So it may be, so I've got the first one set. Let's see. I've got a drop-down box. It's an add type. What that means is that I ask the question, what system do you want to move to? I have down here my drop-down box of QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage 1, which you can modify. The modify button will allow me, if I want to add some other accounting systems into my list. I might want to delete some of these. I might want to change the numbers. The numbers are the amount that's being used, that's being added. So in this particular case, if they want to move to QuickBooks Online, the starting point of my calculation is 500. We'd have a price of 500 for QuickBooks Online. Let me just hit cancel on that one. So I've set that up as a drop down. Depending on which one they pick, if they want me to set them up on Sage 1, I've got 600 because I might decide that I want to charge more for Sage 1. It's more difficult to set people up than QuickBooks Online. It's up to you, the numbers that you choose. I'm just giving you some suggestions, some ideas. So that's the first question in this particular model. It simply starts off by adding an amount. Let me just pick some different ones and let me move to question number 2. Question number 2 is also a drop down. What system are you currently using right now? Are you on a spreadsheet? Are you on Xero? And again, I've chosen a drop down list. and you can see the list at the bottom of different cloud accounting or different accounting systems people might move to. But this time I've got a calculation type as multiply. And so what the software will do is, depending on what system they are currently on, it will multiply the number from the previous question. So if question number 1, they answered QuickBooks Online, I've set that up to be 500. 500 is the price. But that number is going to be increased or decreased depending on what they're moving from. If they're moving from a manual set of books and records, I don't know how well you can see it, but I've got multiply and the value is 1.2. So the software will take the 500, multiply by 1.2, it'll now be 600. But if they're on, let's say, currently on 0, moving from 0 to QBO is a little bit easier because they're both cloud accounting systems, and so it multiplies by 0.9. So 500 by, it would then make it 450. So if they're moving to QBO, it might be 450 if they're moving from 0, it might be 600 if they're moving from a manual set of books and records. Where do these numbers come from? The numbers are your judgment. I'm just giving some suggestions on what you might do. You might decide, you know what, setting somebody up on QBO from a manual set of books and records is a really big job. I want to double the price of that. That's fine. Just hit modify and we can just change that to that 1.2 to a 2. Let's just pick a few more. Is your accounting system up to date? That's going to be a yes/no question. And in this case, if it's a yes/no question, we choose our calculation type, and then we choose the calculation type for both the yes and the no answer. Now I've set this up to be an add, and it's got 0 for both yes and no. In other words, it doesn't affect the price. Whether they choose yes or no, it adds on 0. So you can have questions that really prompt you and remind you to say things that are really important, like, is your accounting system up to date? And they say no. I would then say, right, we're going to have a cleanup project. So once we've done the price for this, we'll also need to tell you what it will cost to bring your books and records up to date. So we can have questions that don't impact on the price, but are there to remind us or our team to ask really important questions, to collect really important data. Okay, I think at this point I might stop and ask for look for specific questions, because you've all got different questions. So let me go through some questions and see what you want to know. I'm just moving my Q&A. Turn the webcam back on. Okay, so Lynn says, what will the proposal builder be included in the full package? I am a current BPA member. Okay, Lynn, no, the good news is the proposal builder, which will be released very soon. And in fact, I might, if we have time in the next 25 minutes, give you a quick preview. It's coming very soon. The proposal builder, for those of you who don't know what it is, once you've agreed your price with the client and they've said yes, the next thing that you'll be able to do very soon is then produce professional looking proposals, engagement letters, and so on. That functionality, which we're going live very soon, will be automatically available regardless of what plan you're on, and it's just going to be built into the software. There's no additional price for that. If you use Cloud Pricing 2.0, you may remember you had to pay a separate subscription for the proposals. That's not the case here. You'll just get it as soon as it's unlocked. You'll get it, Lynn. Okay, so I will give you a quick preview of that in a short while. Katrina Coltes says, how can you reorder the pricing models? So I guess what you're saying there is, this screen you can see right now is the back end. You don't want the client to see this, but when you're on the home screen where I first started, and if I hit the effective pricing logo, which could be your logo, that takes me back to the home screen very quickly. I won't do it just yet in case there's a question about setting up questions coming up, but you'll always see on the left-hand panel these icons, which if I click on, just expand it, you'll see on the left-hand panel all the models that you've got that you have made live. So because I'm on a demo account, I've got lots of models. So this is what the client would see. If you're they'll see all your services on the left-hand side here. And you can reorder those by going into the settings, Katrina. In fact, yeah, you can do it in the settings. And you'll see something called menu management. Menu management allows you to manage the menu and just change the order of things. And if you want to make Cloud Setup the last thing in the list, then you can do that. Okay, let me move. I've got 23 questions. Okay, in fact, let me just click on this. So you can see menu manager. Here it is, Katrina. Menu manager is where you can just manage the order that those icons appear on the client-facing screen, because by default, this is where you start off on the client-facing screen with the models here for pricing and also here. These are all the ones that you've gone live with. Okay, I hope I've answered that, Katrina. Let's move on to Doug says, can the packages that are displayed to a prospect be customized? I'd like to categorize the list of items into a few sections to make it easier to read. What you can't do, Doug, but I think somebody else has asked this, and maybe we put it on the list of future things for the developers. At the moment, and let me just go into a model. It'll be easy to show you. So if I just pick, let's pick the one I've just been, this Cloud Setup. And let's go to the packages section. So you're talking about this. So there's a lot of functionality that we can do here. We can change the order of the things in our list. We can delete things. We can edit things. When you edit, as well as a tick and a cross, you might want to instead have the word free or not applicable, or you can create your own text. So I've now put, did I do that? I can't remember if I did that now. Save. So now I've got the word, I don't know if you can see it, but I've now got the word free for here. So we can change all that, but I think what you're asking, Doug, is can you have essentially subheadings? And the answer to that is you can't in your list. You can't break your list up. However, and yeah, I don't want to go into the detail right now, but my suggestion is that, and if you're in my pricing academy, you'll know I talk a lot about the power of having professionally designed brochures. And this does not replace the brochure. The brochure is really powerful because it's something that you want the client to, you want to walk through and build up the value of what you do before you get to the software. And the software should just be a reminder of what's in there. And so if you've got pricing brochures, that's where you would want to perhaps have them laid out beautifully. So I hope that helps that question, Doug. But we do already have some suggestions from people how we might create some subheadings for this table of packages. Lynn, where can I find the preloaded model to price QBO cleanups? You can't, Lynn, I don't think, because we haven't done it yet. I think it's ready. It's going to be ready soon. As soon as it's ready, I will get that done, Lynn. And we've been, over the last few months, we've been building models for you, and we've got more models to build. So there are more coming. And that, I think, Lynn, is the next one that I will be doing. It'll be done before the end of this year. And Sharon says, I built bill pay and management reporting into my packages. Then I saw in the software that they are included as enhancements. Is one better than the other? Yeah. I don't want to get too, this is not really about the software specifically, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but there's a number of different ways that you can treat things. So I showed you some preferences earlier. The preference in the case of Cloud Setup might be, do you want to set up bank feeds for you? Yes or no? And that's what I call a preference question. You give somebody a choice of something, yes or no, and depending on how they answer it, that partly determines the price. Now, what I could have done instead is I could have made in here that we do your bank feeds as part of the premium package. And so you could build something into a package, into a bundle instead. And the third way, which Shannon says, is you could also build it instead into enhancement. So you could do that, you could agree the price for cloud setup and then say, what a lot of our clients love is when we also automate processes by setting up the bank feeds. So you've got three alternatives for how you offer something to a client, like setting up, you've put, Shan, bill pay. So if you're offering bill pay, it could be a preference question. You could bundle it in, you could make an enhancement as an upsell. And they're all great things to do. Which one's best really depends on what's the model you're in. There's a number of things that can determine what's most appropriate. And I don't want to go through the detail of that now, because that's something we teach in the Pricing Academy, Shannon. So I'm not sure, I'm going to guess you are in one of my academies. And so if you ask that question, perhaps in the December sessions, I'll go into it in a little bit more detail. If that's okay, just because I want to make sure that, firstly, we're not going to answer all 23 questions here today. By the way, I've got another session next week we've planned. I'll tell you about that later. But I want to answer specific questions about the software. So Don Schroeder says, under your preferences, the question is asked, which package do you prefer? How do they know at this point? The reason is, Don, because the software, you open up the pricing software at the end of the value conversation. So what you want to do is, before you, the pricing is the last thing you do. Before you talk about pricing, you want to understand what's important to them. You want to carry out the fact find. You want to ask questions. You want to understand what their pain is, their challenges. Then once you understand what's the right solution for them, you want to then talk about and build up the value of what you do. And that's where you might have a professionally designed brochure, and you want to go through that. And that's where you would talk about things like, go through your bronze, silver, and gold. So I think what you're saying, Don, is, and what you noticed, Don, was in my questions earlier, there was a question that says, what package do you prefer? Let me explain the reason for that. That question, you can only ask that question where you saw it, Don, if you've already gone through a brochure. The reason for the question is this, Don, it's based on something called the law of commitment and consistency. It works like this. When we make a commitment, when we say we're going to do something, we as human beings, this is all of us, we don't like to be seen to be inconsistent in our actions. We are more likely to follow through. And so if you go through a brochure and talk through your bronze, silver, gold, before you then reveal the price, a great question to ask is, so tell me, Don, out of these three packages, which one do you think is best for you and your business? And you want them to articulate and say, I think that the premium is going to suit me perfect. Because once they then said that, when you then reveal the price of the three options, even if premium's more than they're expecting, they're going to feel there's going to be some resistance in their mind to changing to a cheaper package. And so the reason I asked that as one of the final questions in preferences is not to affect the price, but simply to get them to articulate, if I forget to ask the question, which is the most appropriate. So Don, that particular one, that question you saw, I'm glad you picked up on it, is to do with some psychology. Okay. Elena says, is the pricing customizable? Absolutely. The pricing is, we set up models for you with some starting points of questions and prices. You can change all the prices. You can also, so you can change the price of each question. So let me give you, let me just pick up one of these at random. Yeah, okay, so let's get this last one. Do you want our 7-day fast track service? This is a yes or no question, obviously. Do you want it yes or no? And if they say yes, then it's a multiply type, is the way I've done it, and it multiplies by 1.2. That is the same as adding on 20%. So what we're doing is we're adding on 20% if they want it done fast. Why 20%? Value pricing is all about judgment. It's, if somebody wants something fast, then how much extra should you charge for that? It's for you to make a judgment call on that. And so let's say you go with 1.2. And let's say over the course of 10 pricing conversations, everybody chooses the fast track service. That's telling you that they value that so much, they're willing to pay a premium price. And so if you're getting everybody choosing that, then start changing that to 1.25 or 1.3. It's really important to keep testing prices. If you find that nobody chooses that, they say, do you know what, that's too expensive, can I take that out of the shopping basket? It may be that that's too big a jump from the no alternative. So pricing, where do the prices come from? They're fully customizable, but value pricing is largely a matter of a judgment. It's a feeling. And if you're in the Value Pricing Academy or the Bookkeepers Price Academy, you'll know that I keep teaching you value pricing and the fact that we have to get away from this mentality of costs and hours, because it's more about the process that we go through of when we reveal a price. We want the price to be too expensive because that creates an anchor in somebody's mind, a reference price, and then we use the software to change things. So Elena, yes, the software is customizable. It's also customizable that when I go to the next expressing the price, one of the things that we can do is we can do something called a global adjuster. So if, let's say, you've taken one of my pricing models and you've decided that it's a little bit on the cheap, the prices are too low and you want to increase them, then you can go through all of the questions and change the parameters in the way I've just shown you. But also what you could do is you could do a very quick fix. You could say, I want to change this to 1.1. It defaults to 1. What the global adjuster does is when it calculates the final price, before it reveals it to the client, it then multiplies by this number. So if you want a quick way to test your prices, if you want to do a 10% price rise, you just put in 1.1. There are many ways, Elena, that you can change the prices. It's all completely customizable. Okay, and there's lots of training videos on that, on different ways to do that. Right, let's move on. We have 13 minutes left. Let's see if we can do as many of these 20 as possible. So I'm going to do, by the way, I'm going to focus on some shorter questions to start with. There's some long ones from people like Heidi. I'll try and get on to some long ones. But Jonathan says, what are your recommendations for setting package levels on show versus reveal? Okay, so one of the things that you can do with the software, as you saw earlier, is you can offer the client a choice of packages. And the default is that normally you would offer them 3 choices, a bronze, silver, gold, let's say. But with the software, you can actually offer them any number of packages between 1 and 5. It might be for some services, you might want to do a service around helping them get government support around COVID. And it may be you can't think of a bronze, silver, gold. It's just, you know, this is what you do. It's a package. You don't have to offer 3. You could offer 1. And the way you do that is under pricing parameters. So we've looked at questions. If we skip down the workflow a bit, one of the things that we can do is set up our packages. So we set up the specific package with ticks and crosses, but before that we can set up how we express them, how we show, how we reveal those packages, how we price those packages. And one of the things that we can do is, as I scroll down, and this is what Jonathan's referring to, is with each package you can choose whether to hide, show, or reveal. Hide means you don't want to use it. There's 5 columns because if you want to, you can offer 5 choices. I would suggest 3 as the default. There are some reasons why you might want 4, or you might want 1 because you can't think of different packages. So hide effectively turns that package off, whereas show reveals it, shows it by default. It's always going to be on the screen. But what Jonathan's asking is, what about this reveal button? And you will notice that in this model, I have got one of them set to reveal. The one on the far right is set to reveal. What that means is one of the things that you could do if you wanted to is, and Cloud Setup's a good example. So we have the bronze, silver, gold, which I've called essential, full, and premium. But I've also set up one that I've called light Cloud Setup. And if I just go quickly to the next screen with the packages, you'll see as well, you might have noticed there's actually 4 columns here. There's a light one. And if I go back now, so I've got 4 packages. I've got 4 different packages, but when I do the price in front of the client, I only want to show them 3. I only want to show the bronze, silver, gold. But the reveal, having a light one, it's a bit like having an extra package up your sleeve that you could reveal if you want to. You don't have to tell the client about it, but you could do. And so a good example of why you might do this is if you've got a service like Cloud Setup, where let's imagine that you have a client and they've just started business today. They've not started business, they're just starting out, and they want you to put them on QBO straight away. Well, somebody starting business today doesn't need you to transfer their data, their trial balance, because they haven't actually started trading yet. And so you might decide that for them, you want to offer a real cut down package, because it really is simple, because you haven't got that data transfer to do. And so what you could do is you could still show them the bronze, silver, gold with the high prices, but then you could say, Jonathan, because you just started in business, we actually have a special package just for you. So we don't actually recommend you have the premium because we have this light one. Let me now reveal it to you. And by doing that, they're going to say, you've created in their mind this reference price, this high price, but now you're saying, because you're a business startup, we can do this special package for you. And so they're going to be grateful to you because you've got something just for them at a higher price. You're not selling them more than they need, which is the professional thing to do, but you're still keeping it hidden. So you build up in their mind the anchor, the reference price. So does that answer your question, Jonathan? I'm just checking again. What are your recommendations for setting package levels on show versus reveal? Okay, that's one of them. So one option might be if you want to reveal something because you want to keep it hidden up your sleeve. There is another situation, Jonathan, which I go through in more detail in the Value Pricing Academy, but there may be situations where for some services, you do want to reveal them one at a time. Rather than showing all three packages at once, you want to show them one and then another one later, because you want to use a concept I call top-down pricing. I won't go into that now because that's not a software thing, but if you understand top-down pricing, what you can do is set all of your packages to reveal, and then you can choose underneath that the order in which you reveal them. That's to do with top-down pricing. If you don't know what that is, I'll teach you it one day. Okay, we have 8 more minutes. Let me do... there's so many questions. Carol Costa, just a simple one. In the question, if I put information in the description, is this information supposed to be visible somewhere? Yes. So when you, in the questions, if I go into what system do you want to use, I could put something in the description box. What happens when you put something in the description box is when you then at the front end with the client and it has that question, what system do you want to move to? You will see a small little icon, which is an I for information with a circle next to the question. And if you hover your mouse over that, it pops up the description. So that might be where you want to use the description because you want to remind yourself to say something to the client to clarify. It could be that you want to use it as a little tip for a member of your team that's using the software for the first time, just to give them a bit more guidance on why they asked the question. But it's a little pop-up that when you hover your mouse over the eye icon, this description is then revealed. Okay. What I will do, I'm happy to overrun a little bit, but let me, before we, what I want to do is 2 things very quickly. Number 1, if you're not in the pricing academies and you want to get access to the software and find out more, we have gone live with the website, which is not there. Where is it? Okay, so we've now gone live with the website. If you want to access it, Sarah's going to put the link into the chat box. It's www.effectivepricing.co.uk, and you can have a play around, explore. You'll see in there, you'll see the features. You can go to the pricing page and so much. If you go to the pricing page, you'll see that, oh, I know what I've done. It's because I'm doing demos and stuff. You'll see, what was I going to say? Yeah, so have a play around with the website, go and have a look at the pricing page and so on. You'll find some articles on the blog page. You may notice this saying register for free for a free pricing app today. That's not the software I'm just showing you. We have also created a piece of software that's extremely cut down, that allows you to give a fixed price for bookkeeping work with none of the fancy stuff I've showed today. And you can't change the prices, but it's based on the benchmarking study I did last year. So if you are not sure you want to use effective pricing yet, and you've never used it before, you could always grab a copy of this app if you want to. But please do be aware, it's an extremely cut down tool. It's not designed for value pricing. It just gives a single fixed price. Anyway, that's the website. So please have feel free to have a play with that after we finish and have a look there. What I thought I'd just show you quickly, and I just have to log in separately. Hopefully remember my password. This is the test site, because one of the things many of you will know is that we're now building the proposal side of things, and we are just finishing off final testing this week. In fact, I think we're pretty much there with testing. The last thing we want to do is to build some proposals for you. So what you will see in a few days' time, I can't give you the exact date yet because there's a couple of things we're just waiting for, but when you go to the cogwheel and all the settings, you'll see two new boxes at the bottom. Standard paragraphs, proposal templates. They say beta because when this is released, it will be in beta testing mode. So you may find a few things that aren't quite right that we'll be fixing over the next 2 or 3 weeks as we roll out the software. But if you're happy, if you accept that, the fact there may be a few things that aren't quite right, then very, very soon you'll start to be able to play with proposals and build your own proposals. It essentially works similar to model management, in as much as when you go in there, we will have written some templates for you, which are the yellow ones at the bottom, use templates. So rather than building something from the ground up, you can use a proposal that we've set up. And what happens is once you've done your quote with the client, when you finish the quote and agreed the price with the client, you'll have a new option that says create a proposal. And you'll be able to choose whichever proposal you want from a list of proposals. That could be an engagement letter. It could be a fixed price agreement. You can have as many different versions as you want. You can have, if you want to, with a quote, you could create both a fixed price agreement and a separate engagement letter and get the client to sign both documents. That's fine if you want to do that. You can create multiple proposals and attach them to a quote. So I have a ridiculous number here because we're just testing at the moment. But you can either build your own from scratch, just like pricing models, or my recommendation would be use a pre-existing template that we've created. We're going to design some nice ones for you, and then you can just edit them if you need to. So, for example, let me just show you one very quickly. I'll just pick one at random. Just bear in mind it's not ready yet. We're still building them for you, the design, but you've got an area where you can design your proposal by pulling in images, your logos, and so on. And then if I hit save and continue, you can preview them. So what I'm going to do is just bear me a second while I figure out what I'm going to press here. That's it. Let me just. So you can then see what your proposal is going to look like, and what the proposal will do is when you do it with a client, it'll pull in the client's information. It'll automatically pull in as well into the proposal things like the different packages, the payment plan, how they've answered the questions for that specific client. So that's proposals. That's coming very, very soon. As I say, we've almost ready to go live. But what we do want to do is make sure we create a series of proposals for you that you can use as they are. Just put in your, you might want to put your logo in there, put your name and address in there, and so on. But then you're ready to use that every single time, and it's going to save you so much time creating your proposals. So that's that. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple more questions. I didn't know which ones to do because I have so many, but if I don't answer your question, what we will be doing is I'm provisionally planning. In fact, we've decided we're going to run another session, same time next Tuesday. So if you've got questions, come back on Tuesday. We are planning to do one of these every week or so for the next few weeks. So feel free to I'll post them in the Facebook group, just like today. Just turn up and ask your questions. Let me do a few more. Heidi Jacobson says, for your effective pricing models, how do you arrive at your suggested pricing? Actually, I think I've covered that. I know we can adjust, but since I'm new at this for some of services such as business advisory, I wouldn't know what to adjust. Thinking of just using your pricing to begin with and testing afterwards. Is this your recommendation? Yes, Heidi, use the models and just start with that, because with value pricing, and remember, with value pricing, not time-based billing, with value pricing, we don't know what the client values, and every client values things differently. So value pricing is more of a feeling, it's more of a judgment. So what I suggest you do is, and I'm just going to, one thing I haven't shown anybody yet, is just use one of my templates and have a quick look at the questions and see if you want to change the few of them. But then when you get to the workflow of questions, expressing the price, building your packages, the last step is review. And what review lets you do is, as if you're at the front end with the client, you can answer a few questions, but it shows you the calculations. So we've got one that's moving from 0 to QBO, for example, and they've got 2 bank accounts. So we just go through this review screen, answer the questions how we think the client will answer them, hit the calculate button, and what the software will do is it will show you in running total how the math is building up. So remember, if they had QBO, we start with 500. If they chose 0, we multiply by 0.9, that's 450. And as we can see the price building up and what things affect it, and then we can see how that will be shown to the client. So our full setup will be shown as so many payments of, in this case, 6 payments of 339. And so if you think, that's a little bit too expensive, where's it going too expensive? Where am I not comfortable with it? And what you could then do is say, okay, I think this running total is getting too expensive because it's too big a jump when they tick yes to this question here. So what you can then do is, actually, let me pick a simple one. If it's the last one, oh, that's a big jump to 1,044. Why is that? That's the you just go to the question, you find that particular question and you think, that's why it's jumping to 1,044. I think that's a bit too high. I want to increase the price by 10%. I'll save that. I'll go back to my review section and I can't remember how the question, put in how I answer the questions. Oh, that was right, 0. Let's just go back to where I was. Re-hit the calculate button and it'll now recalculate the buttons. And it's now not jumping quite so much. And so what you would do is when you're testing, Heidi, use a model that's created, go and just play around with a few different scenarios in this review section, get a feel for where you might feel it's a bit uncomfortably too high or low, and then just tweak the odd question here and there and until you feel it's comfortable. But then what you'll find is that you'll never know until you use it for real in front of a client. So look at some of the success stories on the website of people that are getting high prices. I get so many stories of people saying, wow, I never thought I'd got double the price. Very often, the mistake we make is we're so afraid of the client saying that's too expensive. In our minds, we come up with a price that we hope the client will say yes to. And very often, we come up with a price which is crazy low. And that's why we're working crazy hard, too hard for too little money. And so what we want to do is be more confident with our pricing. Be confident to go with a high price, knowing that there's lots of things in the software that we can work with the client. We can take things back out until we get down to a price where they say yes. It's all about testing. Okay, let's do another couple really quickly. So Karen says, is the software appropriate for my 130 clients that I provide annual UK compliance work for tax? Bearing in mind making tax digital for income tax is looming. Do you have suggestions for parameters? When you say UK compliance work for tax, I'm going to assume, Karen, you mean tax returns. And if the answer is yes, if the answer is yes, it is, because I've got a model set up for personal tax returns with all sorts of appropriate questions for personal tax returns. The issue with personal tax returns is the software is designed to be used in front of a client and having a meeting. And so when you're talking about services where it might be 1,000 pounds, it's worth, or $1,000, that's a big fee. If you do lots of small things like small personal tax returns, and if your fees are a few $100s and you've got hundreds of clients, you've got 130, that would mean that over time you'd have to meet with all 130 to go through the process to use it to get the best out of the software. But of course, in this day and age, with COVID, we're more digital now anyway, meeting clients virtually using Zoom, just like today. And the great thing about the software is, just as we're doing today, is you can still have the software conversations in a virtual world. You could open up a brochure and show it on screen share, and then you can go through the software in front of the client with your tax return only clients. I don't know if I've answered that very well. But yeah, if you essentially, Karen, you can price anything with the software. Anything, the limit is your creativity. The idea is you will have a conversation with the client, because that's where the psychology kicks in. If you have lots of small clients where you don't want to meet with them every year, then I guess you've got I'm not explaining this very well. No, the chances are, if you haven't got the time to see all your clients, it's because you're charging too low. So you do need to use the software. So I hope that makes sense, Karen. Forgive me, I waffled there and confused myself. Let's have a look at 2 more questions. Fran says, would like to change the display view of the final page that shows breakdown by month, sales tax, etc. Can we change that box to look how we want it to look, or show a collapsed version instead? I'm not sure what you mean by the final page that shows the breakdown by month. Was that when I was doing a front end right at the start of today, when I showed you how I would price it in front of the client? I'm not quite sure what you were referring to then. Given that your question was done at 4:22, it probably was. In terms of the software itself, no, if that's the payment plan page, you can't change that. That's the way that it displays it. But you can then print out a report, and you can choose how that report looks. Within certain parameters, it'll still show the monthly payments. I'm just wondering if I can do that quickly in the time available. Yeah, let me see if I can. So let me just do another quick demonstration for those of you that are interested in the proposal side of things coming out. So I've got and let's see if this works. I didn't test this, so it could go horribly wrong. This is just a simple model, just for demonstration purposes. I don't want to. It's got crazy questions and stuff. I know that, but when you get to this point in time, some people have said to me, "So Mark, what if I get to this point in time and the client just doesn't want to make a decision? They want to go away and think about it." Well, one of the things you can do is you can print out a 1-page report, and if I click print, I will probably get pop-up blocks. Excuse me a second. It's because on my Safari, has that done it? I have a blocker set for some reason, which I just need to override. I can't show it just now. It worked earlier on my other computer. And I'm not very good with Safari internet settings. Let me just try it one more time, because it did work earlier. Print. No, I'm pressing the wrong thing. Okay, forgive me. That's just me being. Oh no, I've done it now. I pressed the right button. Okay, so here, this is a 1-page proposal for which you could print out there and then. And this is just this is not available today. This is an example of what you can build inside the new proposal bit. You could create your 1-page draft proposal you give to people, and in exactly the same way. If I just go back here, let's imagine the client has selected that package, and we get to the payment plan. So this is the bit that, Fran, you can't change this because it's built into the software for setting. And there's some various functionality I didn't go through here, but you can set things like advance payments, and also, so you can, having agreed the price, you can, if you want, to have a separate conversation and negotiate when it's paid. And then what you can do is you can also give the client there and then a nice looking schedule of the payment plan. And again, you can set this up in the proposals with your logo, you might want to build in some wording that says things like when the quote's valid for, and so on and so forth. So this is all part of the proposal builder that we're creating for you right now. Okay, sorry about the, I hope that makes sense. Right, we're 10 past, let me do a few more questions. Leah says, do you have a model that only do QB consulting, like upgrade, troubleshooting, set up and implement additional apps, or training and implement new workflows? No, Leah, we don't have a model for doing that. But if I get enough requests from people in the Value Pricing Academy, I can happily create more models. We have got more models that we will build. So if we get requests for things, we can build them. So just ask. Jan says, would you please explain a bit about when you would use free on your packages? Also, any pros or cons to having different levels of a service across the package, such as response times of, for example, 12 hours for premium, 12 hours for full. So I think what Jack is referring to there is, just bear me a second, I need to go back into, let me pick a model. Again, I'll go with the cloud setup that I was messing around with earlier. And so I think what you're referring to is it here on the, when you're setting this up, when should you use free and when should you use a tick? It's entirely up to you, but essentially my advice is that free is one of the most powerful words in marketing. It's a very powerful word. People love a free bonus. However, we do not want to overuse it. So be really careful. I would generally prefer a tick, but a free is quite cool if you want to draw people's attention to something in particular. So if I was offering clients a cloud accounting setup service, I would also do a holistic system where I'd say, look, one of the things we'll do is we'll review your entire system and recommend other apps and things that will then plug into your brand new QBO system. And so I might want to indicate that as free, the one at the bottom here, rather than a tick, because it kind of, people love something as a bonus. So that's kind of when you might want to use that. And I think part two of your question was any pros and cons to having different levels of a service across the package, such as response times. So you'll see I've got things like 12 months and 6 months and so on. I don't want to go into the detail now because there's more stuff outside the software, but as a general rule, one of the things, for example, that I would warn you against is when you're building packages, let's say you're doing management reporting, business advisory, and you might decide that some clients want business advisory where you meet and do the reports every month. Some might want them quarterly, once every 3 months is enough. They might want them every twice a year. What I wouldn't do is differentiate packages based on that. If you buy our bronze advisory, we meet twice a year. If you buy our silver advisory, we meet 4 times a year. If you buy our premium, we meet 12 times a year. I wouldn't do that, because when I teach how to build packages, you want to build your packages based on specific types of person. So if you're in my Pricing Academy, you'll know what I'm referring to. I call it customer segmentation. And so things like frequency of meetings, response times, and those sorts of things, Jan, I think they're better as preference questions. So you ask the question, would you like us to do the reports and meet with you once a month, once every 6 months, once a quarter? Because that way people get more choice. And so somebody who really wants the middle package can still get to choose the frequency separately. People love choice. It also means you've got more scope to increase and decrease the prices if the price is too high. So I hope it makes sense, Jan. As a general rule, things like frequency and stuff, I would make as a preference question. I'm going to make this the last question because we're a quarter of an hour over, but we will do this again on Tuesday. So Kathy Anderson's the next question that we'll do, the last question. We do full payroll service. Does the software allow us to do the following? The first payroll check for every client is $50 a month, and every payroll check after that is $3 per person per month. Oh, that's put me on the spot, that question. I don't know is the answer. I need to go and think about that one because nobody's ever asked me that question before. I would guess the answer to that is yes, you can do that. I just have to figure out how you would do it. When you think through your questions, I'm always certain, Kathy, you could do that. Sarah, can you make a note of that question and make a note that it's Kathy's question? And what I'll do, Kathy, is I'll think about that and put an answer in the Facebook group later on this week, and I'll tag you. Okay, I'll just need to think it through. Okay, so you caught me out with that one. That was a difficult one. And so I'll do one more bonus question, which is Kimmy Lafayette. Kimmy said, is there a way to stack different, and this could be a hard one as well, is there a way to stack different types of parameters without having to add a separate question? I.e., I was working on my template for payroll. I had one question that was about number of staff that they have. That's another one, Kimmy, where I could perhaps do with more of detail and more of an example. Oh, that wasn't done typing the question. Okay. Kimmy, because it's you and you're part of my academy, could you, I will happily answer that one, but I might have to just think about that because I don't fully understand your question. So if Kimmy, you could just send us that through as a question, perhaps with an example, we will get back to you on that. So let me wrap up with this one instead then. So Jonathan says, does the multiply function work for questions in different sections? Okay, that's a great question. And so let me go back to the questions section. So I said to you earlier that your questions determine how the price builds up. And the calculation of building up the price is in the order of the questions. And that means most of the time you'll be using add and multiply. And therefore, the order of the questions can have a very important impact on the maths. So let's say that you have just 3 questions. Question 1 adds on 10. So it starts with the price at 10. Question 2 says, do you want this, yes or no? If they do, it adds on another 10. Question 3 is, do you want this, yes or no? If the answer is yes, it doubles it. So there's a very big difference between having 10, adding on 10, which is 20, and doubling it becomes 40. That's what it would do by default. The doubling doubles the sum of the previous 2 questions. 10 plus 10 is 20, double it is 40. But what if you just wanted the 10, and then the second question is 10, and if they want this extra thing, it doubles just that 10 and not what happened before. So you want 10, and then in parentheses, you've got 10 times 2, which is 20, and then add on the first 10 is 30. It's a different number to, you either got 30 or 40. And that's all about parenthesis. So if you're using Excel or doing formulae, you would put parentheses around to isolate a set of calculations. That's exactly what this isolate tick box does, Jonathan. So by default, the order of the math is, or the order of the questions is the order of the math. And most of the time that's perfectly okay. And I would keep things simple. But sometimes people want to create more complex models, which I don't necessarily recommend, but where you might want to have a model for bookkeeping and you want to also offer payroll within it. I personally price them separately, but you could ask a whole bunch of bookkeeping questions, and then you could create a separate section of questions about, do you want our payroll service? And you could have your questions in there, and one of those questions might be one that multiplies the number. And you only want to multiply the numbers that are in the payroll related questions. And so the way that you would do that is you would put all your payroll questions into a separate section and then hit this isolate. And isolate means that the software does the calculations for that set of questions in isolation and then adds that total onto wherever we've got to so far in the order of the calculations. Did that answer your question, Jonathan? Does the multiply function work for questions in different sections? So I hope that makes sense. By default, all the questions, the sections make no difference whatsoever in terms of the order of the calculations. The sections make no difference unless you hit this isolate button. And isolate is the equivalent of putting parentheses around the questions in that section. Okay, right, that was the last question. I know we've got another 16 questions, but we'll be here all night. So I apologize if I've not got through your particular question. We will do this on Tuesday and we'll do it again the following week. And I'll keep doing it while people keep showing up because we've still got 44 people here. So we will keep doing this while people show up, whilst you're getting value from these sessions. And these sessions will be random because they'll be largely answering questions, okay? And there'll be a bit of teaching, but largely there'll be me answering questions. If you want more structured training, remember that you can access the video training course, which looks like this. Effective pricing of a systems approach to value pricing. And you'll see there's questions, or videos on things like, if you want to know about the different question types, if I click on there, I've done a video on the different question types. If you want a reminder, if you want to know about unit pricing, which I've not touched today because unit pricing is more advanced, but if you are at that level and you want to know about unit pricing, you'll see I've done a video on there. So if you want formal training, that's in the course. These sessions are going to be random. I apologize, but my goal is just to answer as many questions as I possibly can. I hope you found that valuable. If you think of more things between now and Tuesday, you can always ask in the Facebook group. I'm happy to ask questions as best I can in the Facebook group. And I will hopefully see you next Tuesday if you want some more live answering of questions. Enjoy the rest of your day. Speak soon. Goodbye for now.